Assalamualaikum student. Assalamualaikum to everyone. Am I audible to you all? Yeah, I hope you all can see this slide. So welcome back after your midterm exams. And the midterm grades are posted on the banner, sorry, blackboard, and also the grades for your discussion board as well as assignment one. And right now, the discussion board two is available. I hope you all received the announcement and you can try to access it through the blackboard. So if you have any queries, we can discuss at the end of the session. Okay. Yeah. So coming to today's class, we are going to start with the module 8, where we are going to learn the topics related to the firewall and intrusion prevention systems and all. See, if you remember in module 7 and all, we learned the concepts related to the intrusion detection system, IDS, snort rule, network monitoring, detecting suspicious activities, this type of things and all. So now in this module, we will study two more important network security technologies that is used to protect the networks before the attacks that can cause the damage. Number one, that is firewall, and number two, that is intrusion prevention system. Under these two topics, we have various subtopics. So one by one, we will learn in today's class. As we all know that almost every device is connected in a network, like for example, your computer, your mobile phone, banking systems, or the various cloud applications that you are using, or even the organizations like hospitals, universities, they're all connected in the network. So without network connectivity, many online services would stop working. Like for example, as a student, you are accessing Blackboard through the internet, and some customers they are transferring money using online banking applications. Like many things are happening with network connectivity, and all the systems are dependent on network connectivity. So in today's digital world, the organizations and individuals they rely on the network for their day-to-day activities. So as soon as a system is connected to the internet, it may become a target for the attackers. Like the hacker may try to steal the data, or they will send some malware infection through the email, or network scanning, or password attack, something. So this is why the organization deploy the security devices like firewalls and the intrusion prevention systems. So a firewall is a network security device or a software that monitor and control the incoming and outgoing network traffic based on the predefined security rules. So when you think of the firewall as a security gate, so just as the security guard who checked the people before allowing them into the building, in the same way, a firewall will check the network traffic before allowing it into the network, allowing it into the network. So what is a choke point then? See, a choke point is a single location through which all the network traffic paths so that the security policies can be consistently enforced. Like for example, South Electronic University, they place a firewall at the entrance of the campus network. So every student, every faculty who are trying to access Blackboard or university email or the library resources, they have to pass through the firewall. So if an external attacker attempts to scan the university server, the firewall will block unauthorized traffic while the IPS will detect the suspicious attack patterns and it will prevent. the malicious packets from reaching the internal system. So remember the five important components that firewall, which control the incoming and outgoing network traffic based on security rules, the intrusion prevention system, which will detect and automatically block the malicious network activity, the perimeter defense, which is going to protect the boundary between the internet and the internal network, single choke point. It is a central location where all the traffic is inspected and security policies are enforced. LAN protection. It is going to safeguard the internal computers, servers, and network resources. So that is why the firewalls and intrusion prevention systems are essential components of modern network security. So when we place at the network perimeter, they create a single choke point where all the traffic is inspected. It will help the organizations to protect their local network, their workstations, servers, and even the digital devices and all. What about others? Is my voice is clear or is there any delay? Can anyone please confirm if my voice is clear or do I need to Rozan? Okay. Yeah, can you, Ms. Rozan, can you please reconnect and check because for connecting. Okay. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me reconnect. How about now? Is my voice is clear?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? I hope now it is clear, right? Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks for the confirmations. Let us continue with the class. See, that is why I'm telling the firewall and intrusion prevention systems, they are essential components for the modern network security. Like a firewall is going to act as the first line of defense by controlling which network traffic is allowed to enter or to leave an organization. Then a firewall is not simply a device. A firewall is not simply a device that blocks the traffic. It must perform its job correctly, consistently, and securely. So to achieve this, every firewall will follow three fundamental principles. These principles will ensure that every packet is inspected before it is allowed inside, and only the authorized traffic is allowed, and the firewall itself remains secure. It remains secure. Like for example, as I said, our university, they installed a firewall at the entrance of the campus network. So every user, I mean user in the sense either student, teacher, or a admin. So every user internet request pass through the firewall. The firewall will allow only the approved services based on the user role, like Blackboard, email, library resource, payroll system. So while blocking unauthorized traffic, the university network system will also update the firewall regularly and restrict the administrator access to ensure that the attackers cannot compromise the firewall itself. So a firewall is effective only when it satisfies three fundamental features. First, all network traffic must pass through the firewall and ensuring that every packet is inspected. Second, only traffic authorized by the organization's security policy is allowed. So preventing unauthorized access. Third, the firewall itself must be secure against penetration because compromising the firewall could expose the entire network to attack. So now let us look at very important topic, that is firewall access policy. See, the important question will raise when we are using the firewalls. How does a firewall know which traffic is authorized and which traffic should be blocked? So the only answer is the firewall access policy. Without an access policy, a firewall would not know what decisions to make. See, a firewall access policy is going to be a set of security rules that define which network traffic is permitted to pass through the firewall and which traffic must be blocked, so that the access policy is like acting as the decision making guide for the firewall. Without this policy, the firewall cannot determine whether the traffic is legitimate or malicious. Like, for example, see, in our university, they perform a security risk assessment and they determine, I mean, the administration, they determine that student need access to Blackboard, email, and digital library services, while the administrative system should only be accessible to the authorized staff. The firewall access policy allow these approved services and blocks unnecessary applications, peer-to-peer file sharing, and unauthorized remote access. So detailed rules are then implemented on the university firewall according to its network topology. See, that is why the modern next generation firewalls extend the traditional access policies by incorporating the user identity, application awareness, threat intelligence, and the encrypted traffic inspection. So rather than relying on only on IP address and port, the organizations can create the policies based on users, device types, application behavior, and the current cyber threat information, providing more accurate and adaptive security. So then the characteristics of a firewall access policy. See, the firewall access policy characteristics are the criteria that a firewall will use to inspect network traffic and decide whether to allow or to deny it. See, the firewall access policy characteristics are the specific attributes, or you can say the properties of network traffic that a firewall examine to decide whether the traffic should be allowed or it has to be blocked. So instead of making random decisions, the firewall will evaluate different characteristics of every packet before allowing it to pass. Like, for example, if you see the same university example, if you see where in our university we have the firewall which will allow the students to access the Blackboard and the digital library based on their user authentication and their accounts. If it checks the student IP address, verifies that they are using approved application protocols like HTTPS, and it will monitor the login activity. So if a student account generated an unusual high number of requests in a short period, then the firewall may temporarily block the traffic to protect the university systems and all. See, for this, a firewall access policy uses several characteristics to determine whether network traffic should be allowed or denied. And these characteristics, like IP address and protocol value, application protocol, authenticated user identity, and the network activity pattern, like the request timing and frequency. So by evaluating multiple characteristics together, the modern firewalls will provide more accurate, flexible, and effective network security. So this multi-layered inspection significantly reduce the likelihood of attackers bypassing the firewall protection. Now, let us look at the capabilities and limitations of this. See, every security technology has things it can do very well, I mean the capabilities, and things it cannot do or it cannot fully prevent. That means the limitations. Even a firewall is also having the same thing, because see, a firewall becomes the single entry and exit point between the organization's internal network and the internet. Okay, let me rejoin. Is it okay now? Is it audible? Is my voice is clear? Yeah, thank you. A firewall will become the single entry and exit point between the organization's internal network, and it is connected to the internet. So every packet entering or leaving the network will pass through the firewall. So this will allow the administrator to inspect and to control all the network traffic from one central location. So instead of protecting every individual computer separately, the firewall will provide one central security checkpoint, and the benefits will include the easier management, consistent security policy enforcement, better monitoring, and it will reduce the attack surface. It will reduce the attack surface. Like for example, our firewall system in SCU, it protects the campus network by filtering internet traffic, monitoring the security events, and supporting the VPN access for remote students and faculty. But however, if a student connects an infected USB drive to a computer or to the unsecured Wi-Fi access point, which is installed without authorization, then the firewall alone cannot prevent the resulting internal threat. So a firewall is always powerful network security device that provides centralized traffic control, security monitoring, and the valuable services like NAT, IPsec, and VPN support. But however, it is not a complete security solution. The firewalls cannot protect against the attacks that bypass them, the insider threats, poorly secured wireless networks, or the malware will introduce through the infected portable device. Therefore, the organizations should combine the firewalls with other security measures like endpoint protection, wireless security, user awareness training, intrusion detection systems, all these things. So now we have various types of firewalls. See, every firewall will make the decision about the network traffic, but different firewall use different methods to decide whether a packet should be allowed or blocked. So we have three basic types. One is positive filter, negative filter, and stateful inspection firewall. See, not every organization will have the same security requirements. Like for example, a bank may require very strict security, or a small organization may need to provide access only to their online services. So different firewall approaches will help the organizations to choose the most appropriate level of protection. So number one, the positive filter. See, a positive filter is a firewall approach that allow only the packets that match predefined security rules, and it's going to block everything else. And this approach is also known as the default deny approach. In other words, I can say simply, if traffic is not explicitly allowed, it is automatically denied. Like for example, a company creates the firewall rules like allow HTTPS through port 443, allow email SMTP, allow VPN. So everything else is going to be automatically blocked. This provides a very strong security because only necessary services are going to be accessible. Then a negative filter is a firewall approach that block the packets which matching specific rule while allowing all other traffic to pass. This approach is also called default allow approach. Like if the traffic is not specifically blocked, then it is allowed. Like for example, a company blocks telnet, peer-to-peer file sharing, known malicious IP address. That means all other traffic is allowed a part of these three. So it is easier to configure initially. It is suitable when most services need to remain accessible, and it requires a very few initial rules and all. And the third one is stateful inspection firewall, which is a firewall that monitor the network packets and it keep the track of the state of active TCP connection before making a security decision. Before making security decision. So a state is going to represent the current status of a network connection. Like for example, during a web browsing session, the firewall will know who started the connection, whether the session is active, whether the reply packet belonged to an existing connection. Likewise. So in overall, the firewall security is depending not only on its rules but also on how those rules are applied. Positive filtering, negative filtering, and the stateful inspection each are going to play important role in controlling the network traffic, with stateful inspection providing enhanced protection by understanding the context of ongoing TCP communications, and then the packet filtering firewall. Packet filtering firewall. See, a filtering firewall is a firewall that examine each network packet individually, and it is going to decide whether to allow or to block based on predefined filtering rules. Predefined filtering rules. It does not examine the entire communication system session. Instead, it is going to inspect each packet independently. So every packet entering or leaving the network will pass through the firewall. The firewall will compare the packet against its filtering rule. If the packet satisfy an allowed rule, then it will be forwarded, or otherwise it is going to be discarded. So the firewall will check where did the packet come from. I mean the source IP address, destination IP address, source port, destination port, what is the IP protocol it is using, then what is the interface it is using, all these things. Like for example, as you know, Saudi Electronic University, they deploy a packet filtering firewall at its internal internet gateway. So the firewall examine each packet source and destination IP address, the protocol, and the destination port. So the rules will allow HTTPS traffic to the Blackboard and the digital library while blocking unnecessary ICMP traffic and unauthorized services, because the university use a default discard policy, and any traffic not explicitly permitted is automatically blocked here. So that is why, see, a packet filtering firewall will protect the network by examining the header of every packet and applying predefined security rules. So its effectiveness depends on well-designed filtering rules and the choice of a secure default policy, with the default deny approach providing the strongest level of protection. Then packet filter weakness. See, a packet filtering firewall will make the decision based on only the information that is found in the packet header. It does not inspect the application data, I mean the payload, user identity, application behavior, or the entire communication session. As a result, some packets may pass through the firewall detected. So let us say in our university we are using packet filtering firewall to protect the student e-service system. Now, the firewall allow HTTPS traffic, but it cannot detect a vulnerability within the portal application itself. So an attacker may also attempt IP address spoofing or sending some fragment packets to bypass simple packet filtering rule to improve security. In this case, the university combined packet filtering and web application firewall, intrusion prevention, and even the detailed monitoring also. So what I try to say here is a packet filtering firewall is going to provide a very fast and efficient network protection by examining the packet header. But it has important limitations. It cannot detect the application level vulnerabilities. It provide limited logging, lacks advanced user authentication, and it can be vulnerable to attack such as IP address spoofing, source roots attack, and tiny fragment attack. Additionally, the incorrect firewall configurations can create the serious security risk. For this reason, the organizations typically combine the packet filtering with more advanced security technologies like stateful inspection, application aware firewall, and the intrusion prevention system and all. Now, let us see about the stateful inspection firewall. See, a stateful inspection firewall is a firewall mechanism that examines the packet header information and maintain a record of active TCP connection to make more intelligent security decisions. Unlike a packet filtering firewall, it does not examine each packet independently. Instead, what it is doing, it remember whether the packet belongs to an existing communication session or not. Like for example, like you open the blackboard using any browser and the protocol will be https, right? Now your computer is assigned an ephemeral source port while the blackboard server will listen on port 443. So the stateful inspection firewall will record the TCP connection and allow only the reply packet that match the established session. So if an attacker attempt to send unwanted packets to the user temporary port, the firewall will block them because there is no valid connection exists. So remember, a stateful inspection firewall will improve upon the traditional packet filtering by examining not only the packet header information but also the state of active TCP connections. It maintains a connection table. It tracks the TCP sequence number and it allows the incoming traffic to client ephemeral ports only when it matches an established session. By understanding the context of network communications, the stateful inspection will provide the stronger protection against unauthorized or forged packets while supporting the legitimate network traffic. Then the application level gateway, or it is also called as proxy gateway. See, even though the firewalls are providing good network security, still they have one limitation. They do not fully understand the actual application. So to overcome this limitation, a more advanced firewall called the application level gateway, or also known as the proxy firewall, was deployed. Unlike the previous firewalls, this firewall is going to act as a intermediary, I mean the middleman between the user and the destination server. So that means it is a firewall that acts as a intermediary between the client and the remote server by receiving, by inspecting, and by forwarding the application level traffic on behalf of the user. So instead of allowing the client to communicate directly with the server, the firewall will communicate with both sides separately. Like for example, Now we have deployed HTTP proxy firewall for user internet access. When a user requests access to the Saudi digital library, now the browser will send the request to the proxy. Now the user first authenticate using university credentials, after which the proxy will examine the HTTP request and it will establish a separate connection to the library server. Only the approved requests are going to be forwarded. So it is helping to enforce the acceptable use policies and protect the university network. So that means an application level gateway or proxy gateway, it is going to act as a intermediary between the user and the remote server by receiving, by inspecting, by authenticating, and by relaying the application level traffic. Unlike the packet filtering or basic stateful inspection, it understands the communication of specific applications that will allow it to enforce detailed security policies and support the user authentication. Even though this approach provides the greater security, it also introduces the higher processing overhead because every request pass through the proxy and it require the additional inspection. Then the circuit level gateway. Unlike the application level gateway, it does not inspect the application data. Instead, it is going to verify that a connection is legitimate, genuine, and then simply the traffic relay the traffic between the client and the server. So a circuit level gateway is a firewall mechanism that establishes two separate TCP connections, one with the internal client and another with the external server, and it relays the traffic between without inspecting the application data. Unlike a proxy firewall, it focuses on the connection itself, not the application command. Like for example, if you see, as the university server allow student, faculty, admin, different types of users to browse the external websites from the university network. Since the user have already authenticated through the university network, a circuit level gateway establish a separate TCP connection for internal users and external servers. So it will verify that the communication is permitted and it relay the traffic without inspecting the content of every web page. So this will provide efficient access with the lower processing overhead. Okay, so that is why a circuit level gateway is going to improve the network security by establishing two separate TCP connections, one with the internal client and another with the external server. So it is going to verify that the communication session is permitted and then it relay then TCP segment without examining the application data. So because it is independent of application logic, it provide the lower processing overhead than an application level gateway, so making it well suited for environments where the internal users are trusted and efficient outbound communication is very important. So now we are going to see a very important topic, that is socket secure protocol. Socket secure protocol. See, the socket secure protocol is not a separate firewall type, but rather than a standard protocol that enables the client application to securely communicate through a firewall which is acting as a circuit level gateway. So the socket secure is a network protocol that allow the client server application to securely communicate through a firewall by using the socket secure server as a relay. So the most widely used version is SOCKS version 5, which is standardized in RFC 1928. RFC means a request for comments, which is a document published by the Internet Engineering Task Force that defines that internet standards and the protocols. Like for example, if you see, as the university allow the user to access online learning resources through this socket secure protocol enabled web browser. Now the browser will communicate with the socket secure server located on the university firewall after authenticating the student or the faculty and verifying the destination website. This socket secure server will establish a relay connection to the external resource. This will protect the university network while allowing the secure access to the internet service. So that is why the socket secure is a standardized protocol that enable the client server application to communicate securely through a firewall acting as a circuit level gateway. So a socket secure server will be running on the firewall authenticated users. It evaluate the relay request and it establish the secure communication with external servers. The internal host will use a socket secure client library and the applications must be socket secure enabled to use the protocol. So the socket secure support both TCP and UDP. With UDP communications, it will be managed through a parallel TCP control channel and it will be providing a secure and efficient network access with lower overhead than the application level proxy firewalls. So then the firewall basing, I mean the options for locating firewall. See, a bastion host. A bastion host is one of the most secure and carefully protected computers in a network because it serves as the primary point of contact between the internal network and the external network as like internet and all. So the firewall basing options for locating firewall is called as firewall basing. Okay. So there are different ways of locations in which there are different ways or different locations in which the firewall components can be placed within a network to provide a very effective protection. So the bastion host, which is a highly secured computer positioned at the boundary between an organization's internal network and the external network. So it is going to serve as a central point for providing the secure network service and resisting the cyber attacks. The word bastion originally referred to a heavily fortified part of a castle that was designed to withstand the enemy attacks. So similarly, the bastion host is the front fortified computer that protect the internal network. Okay, so like for example, if you see in our university, if we are using this bastion host at the edge of the campus network, the bastion host will run the HTTP protocol, HTTPS protocol, even the VPN proxy services for the users of university. So the user authentication will be done before accessing the external resources and only the approved websites are permitted. Unnecessary services are removed from the bastion host to minimize the security risk. So a bastion host is a highly secured computer positioned at the boundary of an organization's network. So it is going to serve as a critical strong point of the firewall architecture by hosting the application level gateways, circuit level gateways, and even other proxy services. To minimize the security risk, it is going to run a hardened operating system with only essential services enabled, which requires the user authentication when appropriate and uses small independent proxy module that can be individually managed or removed. So this modular and secure design will make the bastion host a key component in protecting enterprise networks from the external threats and all. Then firewall basing. See, even if a network has a powerful perimeter firewall, individual computers and servers can still be attacked. So a host-based firewall is a software firewall that installed on an individual computer or server that monitor and control the incoming and outgoing network traffic for that specific host. So unlike a network firewall, this one is going to protect only, the network firewall is going to protect only the computer on which it is installed. So here, if you see, the most of the modern operating systems already they include a built-in host-based firewall. If you see in Windows, they have Windows Defender firewall. In Linux, IP tables, NF tables, firewall, then UFW. In Mac OS, the application firewall. In Android, firewall support through the security features and applications. And in iOS operating system, there is a built-in application security protocols. So some organizations even may also they have third-party firewall softwares with additional features and all. See, a host-based firewall is a software firewall that is installed on an individual computer or server to monitor and to control its network traffic. It filters the incoming and outgoing packets based on the customized security rules, providing the protection against both external and internal attacks because it can be tailored to the specific needs of each host. So it is especially valuable for protecting critical servers. When combined with a network, the firewall it supports a defense in depth strategy by adding an extra layer of security to the organization's overall cybersecurity architecture. Then the personal firewalls. So far we have seen like network firewalls, bastion host, host-based firewalls and all. See, a personal firewall is commonly found on home computers or even office laptops and personal workstations. So this one is going to provide the first line of defense for an individual device against unauthorized access and the malicious software. So yes, a personal firewall is a software or small hardware firewall that monitor and control the network traffic entering and leaving an individual personal computer or the workstation. So that means, unlike an enterprise firewall that protects an entire organization, a personal firewall will protect only one user device. Like for example, for the faculty, the university provides the laptop with a personal firewall enabled. When the faculty connect to a public Wi-Fi while attending conference, or the firewall will block unauthorized incoming connection attempts and monitor the outgoing traffic to ensure that no malicious software communicate with external services and all. And then here in this image, you can see that we need to understand, as in this framework or the diagram, which clearly shows one of the most secure firewall deployment architecture, that is called dual firewall architecture, where two firewalls protect the organization's internal network. So as you can see in this diagram, it contains various components like internet, boundary router, then external firewall, then we have the LAN switch, then DMZ network we have. After that, we have the internal firewall, and then again LAN switch, then internal protected network. So likewise, various components are inbuilt into the framework to protect the organization's systems and other tools and all. See, in overall, for example, let us say the Saudi Electronic University places its public website, email server, and DNS servers in the DMZ so that a user can access them from anywhere. Behind the internal firewall that are the learning management system, student information system, and academic databases, even if the public website is hacked, the internal firewall will prevent the direct access to all these learning management systems, student records, faculty records, and all. So likewise, a dual firewall architecture will separate an organization's network into three security zones. One, internet. Second, the DMZ zone. And the third, the internal protected network. So the external firewall protects the public facing service, which allow controlled internet access, and as application servers, the databases and workstations. So this layer design support defense in depth, which will ensure that even if a server in the DMZ is compromised, the organization's most sensitive resources will be remain protected. And then a very important topic, that is a virtual private network security. See, since the internet is a public network, sensitive information could be intercepted. So to solve that problem, the organizations, they use a virtual private network. So a VPN will create a secure encrypted tunnel through the public internet so that the user can communicate safely. So a virtual private network is a technology that creates a secure and encrypted connection over a public network. This allow the user or the organization to communicate as if they were connected to a private network. So even though the communication travels over the internet, the encryption makes it private. The encryption makes it private. So what is IPsec here? See, Internet Protocol Security. It is a collection of security protocols that protect IP communication using encryption, authentication, and even integrity checking and all. So remember, a virtual private network which will enable the secure communication over the public networks by creating an encrypted tunnel between the users or the networks. So the IPsec will protect the IP packets through encryption, authentication, and the integrity verification while it is operating transparently to the users. So the VPN will support both the remote access connection for individual user and site-to-site connection between the organizational networks. So it will allow sensitive information to travel safely across the internet without exposing the confidential data. And then a very important mechanism, that is distributed firewalls. See, the modern organizations, they have like hundreds or thousands of computers and multiple branch office, remote employees, cloud servers, mobile devices. So managing separate firewall on each device manually uh, becomes very difficult. So to solve that problem, the organizations are using this type of distributed firewalls. So a distributed firewall will combine the host-based firewall mechanism and the network firewall mechanism under a centralized management. So a distributed firewall is a security architecture that combine multiple host-based firewalls and the standalone network firewalls, where it will manage through a central administration system. So instead of relying on a single firewall, the security policies are distributed across many devices. So why it is called distributed? See, the firewall is distributed because the security is deployed across multiple locations instead of one firewall that protecting everyone. Here many firewalls will work together to protect the entire organization. Like in our university, if you take they have the firewall system which will manage during the exam time and all over 2000 computers across various branches, faculty offices, libraries, and even the administrative department. So each device is going to run a host based firewall, while the university network is protected by standalone firewall at the internet gateway. And the IT department, they use a centralized management system to distribute the firewall rules to all the devices and make sure that it is consistent security policies across the entire campus. So This architecture will enable the organizations to apply consistent security policies quickly, distributed firewall updates, protect the remote user and branch officers, and implement a defense in depth strategy. So that is why the distributed firewalls are particularly valuable for large enterprises with hundreds and thousands of devices that require centralized security management. Then the firewall topologies. See, a firewall topology will describe how and where the firewalls are arranged within a network. Why? Because see, different organizations they choose different topologies depending on their size, security, requirement, budget, and the network complexity. So as you can see, we have the major firewall topologies that are host resident firewall. This is a firewall that is installed directly on an individual computer or a server. And then second, if you see the screening router, which is a single router between the internal and external network. That means it is a router that is configured with packet filtering rules to protect the small network. And then single bastion inline. So this is a single firewall device between an internal and external router. So it is one firewall that is installed directly between internet and internal network. So this firewall may use the stateful inspection, application proxy, and the single bastion T, so which has a third NIC on bastion to a DMZ. And the NIC means here network interface card. And then we have double bastion inline. So this one is like the DMZ between for large organizations. So two firewalls are going to be used. The DMZ is located between them, and double bastion T, where this topology will combine two firewalls and separate network interface to create even more flexible network segmentation. And the distributed firewall configuration is like combining network firewalls and host firewalls, and it is going to be managed centrally. It is going to be managed centrally. So based on the organization requirement, they will choose which topology they want to implement and how they can protect the systems. So now a very important topic that we are going to start, that is intrusion prevention systems. So far, like we have studied about firewalls and various types of firewalls which are designed to allow or to block the network traffic based on predefined security rules. But however, consider there are some situations like a malicious packet use an allowed port like port 443. Then the firewall will allow it because the traffic appears genuine, and the malicious packet then exploit a vulnerability in a web application. So a traditional firewall may not recognize this attack, right? So to solve that problem, the security system called intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system were developed. So the intrusion prevention system is a security system that continuously monitor the network or the host activities, which will detect the malicious behavior and the automatically block or prevent the attack in a real time, like for example, in our university, if they implement the network based IPS at its internal internet gateway, so the IPS will monitor all the incoming traffic to the blackboard. When it detect a known SQL injection signature targeting the university Blackboard system, it immediately blocked that malicious packet before they reach the web server. It also identify the abnormal logic behavior, so like thousands of failed login attempt from a single IP address and preventing the further access also. So an intrusion prevention system will extend the capabilities of an intrusion detection system by not only identifying the malicious activity but also actively preventing the attack. So operating inline, an IPS inspects the network or host traffic in the real time, and it uses the anomaly detection, signature detection, and the heuristic detection to identify the threat. So when malicious activity is detected, the IPS can immediately block the packet, terminate the suspicious sessions or reject the connection. So providing an essential layer of proactive defense in modern cybersecurity architectures is possible. Now let us see the host-based IPS mechanism. Unlike a network-based IPS that protect an entire network, here a host-based IPS mechanism will protect one specific computer or the server by monitoring the activities, applications, and the files and operating system also. That means a host-based intrusion prevention system is a security system that is installed on an individual computer or the server that monitor the system activities, detects the malicious behavior, and automatically prevent the attack of targeting that specific host. So unlike a network-based IPS, which monitor the network traffic, the HIPS will monitor what happens inside the computer itself. So the additional capabilities like sandboxing, then what file protection, registry protection, and IO monitoring. So these are all going to allow the HIPS to prevent the attacks like buffer overflow, directory traversal, and malware attempting to access the sensitive resources, making it as an essential layer of endpoint security. After this, we have network-based IPS. See, instead of protecting a single computer, a NIPS will protect an entire network by inspecting all the network traffic, by inspecting all the network traffic. So a network-based intrusion prevention system is a security device that is installed directly in the network path that monitor the network traffic, and it is going to detect the malicious activities and automatically block the attack by discarding the packets or terminating the suspicious TCP connections. So unlike a host-based IPS, which protect in one computer, the NIPS will protect many devices across the network. So it is going to detect a known SQL injection pattern using pattern matching, and it is going to block a fragmented attack using stateful matching. That means it is rejecting the malformed HTTP request through protocol anomaly detection. See, by combining the pattern matching, stateful matching, protocol anomaly detection, and the traffic anomaly detections. So the NIPS will provide proactive protection against both known cyber attacks and abnormal network behavior, making it a vital component of modern enterprise security. Then digital immune systems. See, however, we know that the cyber threats continue to evolve day to day as the technology is evolving. So every day the attackers are creating a new malware that traditional antivirus software may not recognize immediately. So to address these challenges, the security researchers they developed the digital immune system DIS. So a digital immune system is an automated cybersecurity system that detects, analyzes, respond to protect the computers against the malware by quickly identifying the new threat and distributing the security updates. Like for example, if you see in the university lab, there is a experience of new malware infection through the student USB drive. So the suspicious file is automatically submitted to the digital immune system for analysis. After identifying it as a new ransomware variant, the system will generate a detection signature and distribute an update to all the university computers that will prevent further infections across the campus. So a digital immune system is an advanced cybersecurity approach that provide comprehensive protection against the malware by automatically detecting, analyzing, and responding to the new threats. So this is how the system is going to be worked. As you can see, this diagram contains, I mean, in the overview of the architecture, if you see in this diagram, there are various components. It is internet is there, firewall sensor is there, then passive sensor is there, honeypot is there, remote sensor is there, correlation server is there, application server is there, then sandbox environment is there, hypothesis testing and analysis is there, then instrumented applications are there, patch. So with all these components work together to automatically identify and respond to the malware. Because the placement of malware monitors demonstrate how a digital immune system will protect an enterprise by deploying multiple monitoring components through the network. So the firewall sensors, passive sensors, honeypots, and remote sensors, they all collect the information about the suspicious activities and they send it to the correlation server, which determines whether an attack is happening. The suspicious software is then executed safely in a sandbox. It will analyze to identify the vulnerabilities and used to generate the patches and security updates. So these are going to be the distributed to the production system, and this layered automated process will enable the organizations to detect, to analyze, and to respond rapidly for both and emerging malware threats. And then we have the snort line. See, originally the snort was designed as an intrusion detection system. It is monitored network traffic and generate alerts when suspicious activity was detected. However, the security professionals, they wanted the snort to actively stop the attack, not just to detect them. So this led to the development of this mechanism, that is snort inline. So it is a open source network security tool that analyzes the network traffic using predefined rules to detect the suspicious or malicious activities. So originally the snort operation as an IDS, so an enhanced version of the snort that not only detect the malicious traffic but also attacking prevent the attack by modifying, rejecting, or dropping the packets in the real time. So it adds three new rule types that provide intrusion prevention feature: drop, reject, S-drop. Drop. Snort reject a packet based on the option defined in the rule and log of the result. And then reject. The packet is rejected and the result is logged and an error message will be returned. And the third case, S-drop. So the packet is rejected but not logged. So this is how it is going to be handled in a effective way. So then we have unified threat management system. See, imagine there is a company who is buying and managing separate devices for each of these functions. So this would require multiple devices, different management consoles, separate software updates, then more administrators, higher maintenance cost will be there. So to solve that problem, the security vendors introduce unified threat management product. A UTM will combine multiple security functions into a single security appliance, making the network security easier to manage in a effective way. Like in our university, if we are using the UTM appliance to protect its network, then the UTM act as a firewall to control the internet access. It detects suspicious activities through the IDS. It will block the attack using IPS. It will scan the downloaded files for malware. It filter the access to the malicious websites, and it will provide a secure VPN connection for users working remotely. So the university IT team will manage all these functions through a single administration console. After that, the side vendor G2 security appliance attack protection. See, when you look at the real world enterprise security appliance that is called side vendor G2 security appliance, its primary responsibility is to provide the end-to-end communication, then reliable data delivery, flow control for various protocols, and error checking, and also the connection management. So the most common transport layer protocols are TCP and UDP, right? Like we know in OSI model, layer 7 is application, layer 6 is presentation, layer 5 is session management, layer 4 is the transport, and layer 3 is the network, layer 2 is the data link, layer 1 is the physical. Likewise, so the Sidewinder G2 security appliance is an enterprise firewall and security gateway that provide multiple layers of protection against the network attacks, including the attacks targeting the transport layer. So that means it combines several security technologies into one platform, like firewall, proxy server, intrusion prevention, secure VPN, attack detection. Like many things will be handled in a single protocol. So the Sidewinder G2 security appliance will provide strong um, transport layer protection by inspecting TCP and UDP communication before they reach the internal systems. So it is going to detect the attacks like TCP, SYN flood, UDP flood, then port scanning, TCP flag attack, and session hijacking. By analyzing the packet header, the connection states, and traffic behavior, by blocking the malicious traffic while it allowing the legitimate communication, it helps to maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of enterprise network. So we are going to start another new topic now, that is buffer overflow. Buffer overflow. See, I can say that this is the one of the oldest and most dangerous software attack in computer security, because a buffer overflow is not a network attack like a DOS attack. Instead, it is an application level vulnerability that attackers exploit to execute the malicious code and gain the control of the computer. Even in today's generation, the buffer overflow vulnerabilities will continue to appear in the software because of the programming mistakes that the programmers are doing. So a buffer is a temporary area in the computer memory that is used to store the data while it is being processed. So when we think of it like a container with a fixed capacity, okay, so a buffer overflow is going to happen when a program receives more data than the allocated buffer that can hold, which will be causing the extra data to overwrite the adjacent memory locations. So this memory corruption can lead to the program crash, data corruption, execution of malicious code, complete system compromise, all these things. Like for example, there is a new portal like online student registration, which will be using an unsafe programming function that does not verify the input length. So an attacker will submit an excessively long username, causing a buffer overflow that crash the application. After identifying the vulnerability, the development team will update the code to validate the input length and prevent the memory corruption. So a buffer overflow is primarily happen by a programming mistake. So the programmers will create a buffer with a fixed size but does not properly check how much data is being stored into it. As a result, too much data will be written into the buffer. Like for example, suppose a programmer create a buffer that can create 20 characters, the user will enter 50 characters. So if the program does not verify the input length, the extra 30 characters will overwrite nearby memory, right? So A buffer overflow is going to happen because a programming error that allow more data to be written into a fixed size buffer that it can store. So the buffer may exist in the stack, heap, or global data sections of memory. When the buffer overflow, it overwrites adjacent memory, leading to program data corruption, unexpected changes in program execution, memory access violations, or even the execution of attackers' controlled code. So careful input validation, secure coding practice, and the proper memory management are essential to prevent all these vulnerabilities. See, if you look at the history of the buffer overflow, in 1988, the Morris Internet worm was used buffer overflow exploits in fingered as one of its attack mechanism. So the Morris Internet worm was one of the first internet worm to spread widely. It infected thousands of Unix systems connected to the early internet. So fingered was a network service that allowed user to obtain information about other users on a system. So the Morris worm exploited a buffer overflow vulnerability in the fingered service to spread it automatically. So the Morris worm demonstrated that a programming error could be exploited remotely. The malware could spread automatically across the network. The buffer overflow vulnerabilities could have widespread consequences. See, a buffer overflow in NCSA HTTPD 1.3 was discovered and published on the bug track mailing list by Thomas Loptek in 1995. So the NCSA HTTPD was one of the earliest web server software package used to host the websites. And in 1996, ALF one published Smashing the Stack for Fun and Profit in Frac magazine, giving a step-by-step introduction to the exploiting of stack-based buffer overflow vulnerabilities. It is one of the most influential technical article in the computer security because it explained how stack-based buffer overflow works, how attackers exploit them, how memory is organized, how overwritten uh, address can redirect the program execution and all. And then in 2001, Code Red Worm, the Code Red Worm exploit buffer overflow in Microsoft IAS 5.0. And then in 2003, the Slamware Worm exploit the buffer overflow in Microsoft SQL Server 2000. So the Microsoft SQL Server is a database management system that is used by many organizations. Unlike many worms, the Slammer spread extremely quickly because it existed entirely in the memory and continuously scanned over the vulnerable servers and all. And in 2004, the Sasser worm exploit the buffer before in Microsoft Windows 2000 and XP. The Sasser worm, unlike many earlier worms, it spread without requiring user to open email attachment. So likewise, the history was there, and the history of buffer overflow attacks clearly shows that even a small programming error can have a global consequence. So these incidents shaped the modern cybersecurity by emphasizing the secure coding, timely patch management, and continuous vulnerability assessment as essential practice for protecting the software systems. And then attacks. See, a buffer overflow attack is an attack in which the attacker intentionally send more data than a program memory buffer that can hold. So it can cause the memory corruption that may lead to a system crash or even execution of malicious code. See, a buffer overflow attack starts with identifying a vulnerable program. The attackers analyze the source code, test the program using oversized input, then employ the fuzzing tools, and they study the memory layouts to understand how the data is stored. So this knowledge will allow them to determine whether an overflow can corrupt the memory or alter the program execution, so that the same techniques are also used by the cybersecurity professionals during the secure software testing to discover and fix the vulnerabilities before the attackers can exploit them. So with this, let us stop our today's session, and we will continue the remaining slides in our next session. So students, the grades for your midterm has been published, and I hope you all aware of that. please make sure that you have gone through your midterm grades, your discussion board grades, and the assignment grades. And those who are absent for the midterm exam, I think you may have raised the ticket, technical ticket, or excuse through the dedicated portals. So the college will take the decision, and then they will inform. Okay, if I receive any information, I will intimate you all. So thank you so much for joining today's session. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask. So the attendance will be posted by tomorrow for this session, and remaining the previous attendance and all, it is posted on the banner. If you want to check, you can check in the banner system. So thank you all. You all can leave now. See you all in the next class.